this is Dr. Mackenzie, and thank you for coming to another installment of Instructional Design. Today, we're going to talk about reimagining learning. And essentially, what I mean by that is we're going to take learning from the tradition of what it has been as an activity of acquiring knowledge, but what does it truly mean today with all the ever changing technology and the demands of the workplace as it exists? So think about how back in the day, I'm going to take us from a very imaginative continuum of learning. We are a society of learning, however, we learn in different ways. And when I say society, well, that word in itself implies that we are learning from one another. And that is very true. As a matter of fact, right now you are listening to me, and there may be an idea or a thought that may be communicated to you, and therefore you guys are learning something. Likewise, we have methodologies. So when you see the next item that we have, the ADDIE, you are at this point very familiar with what the ADDIE stands for. So it's the acronym that relates to the analysis, design, development, and implementation. And in addition to that, the evaluation of a topic or a training solution. By definition, a training solution is going to be some kind of training event, whether it's in person or via the computer. We also have the SAM, which is the Successive Approximation Model. And this is fairly recent, and that's why I chose the title of this particular slide as the From A to Z, because we have evolved. SAM is essentially that iteration process where we do mini ADDIEs, so to speak, but we do them in sprints. So imagine a concentric circle for every different iteration of a topic. So if a topic contains 3 steps, you're going to have a mini ADDIE for each one of those steps, and it's going to be concentric in nature, or at least it's going to be a closed loop. While one is processing in closing the loop, the second step is also processing and closing its loop, and so on and so forth. So that way, you don't have to go from beginning to end, which could potentially take you months. With the SAM is kind of a while we do this, we can begin on the next one kind of model. So we have those models in terms of learning, so creating how we design learning. Now let's talk about the purpose of learning. And again, this is just one piece of it. You have many different approximations and many different models in which we speak and talk about training and learning. But for the purpose of our class in instructional design, and the reason why I chose the topic of reimagining learning is because the traditional way in which we have seen learning in the last few years in the corporate environment is usually an awareness plan. An awareness of a process, an awareness of steps, an awareness of some kind of program. And we call that training. Because people need to be aware of X, Y, Z, they need to complete the training. So that is purely an awareness training. When we go the extra mile as instructional designers and we ask, what is it specifically what the people or the person needs to know after the training? And the answer usually is, well, they just need to show that they completed it all, or that we need to have an attestation that they have completed all the training. That is what I call an awareness training. Because you are not we are not checking, you are not evaluating that the person transferred knowledge from the source to the brains to use it in a production. And so that is truly what I mean by awareness. Sarcastically, you see the next bullet where I talk about it as entertainment. And it is a little bit sarcastic because unfortunately that is what has become sometimes in some organizations. I don't say this is the norm, but like I mentioned sarcastically, it is somewhat of an entertainment because if you look at the necessity of the training, it's not really relevant. When it comes down to it, That's why learning and development is usually called a cost center in any organization, because we don't produce anything of value that is tangible to the company. Instead, we always spend money to make people aware, or to keep people happy, or to increase their engagement. And so what I am suggesting is let's try to reimagine that, so that learning really is getting at the key performance indicators. And actually not learning, but training. If we are truly going to train someone, let's focus instead of just the awareness. Definitely is important, but it's not just awareness. And there's got to be an entertaining piece, because otherwise people are not going to listen to or watch the video or be a part of the training. But also the key performance indicator. What is it that the person is going to gain as knowledge, expertise, clue, shortcut, etc., to increase or better their production? And so that is essentially what we're getting at. So let's dive a little further into the key performance indicators. So essentially, a key performance indicator is usually a quantifiable metric. And I say overproduction or overproductivity. So you have heard in the past soft skills and hard skills. It's a little old-fashioned, but it continues to exist. And the way those help us define what we do in training is, when we talk about production, we're looking at something tangible. So imagine people fitting pieces in an assembly line, or creating a product based after certain steps, whether it's a light bulb, a box, or even a report. So it doesn't have to necessarily be just physical in an assembly line, but it can be also in an office producing some kind of documentation, information, or the like. That is usually what we refer to as the hard skill. And that's why I say a production metric. And so we always have to find that metric around it. So imagine this: if it's a production environment, how many items are free of defects when they are being produced? Or how many reports are being 100% accurate rather than 90% accuracy? So when you start talking in those terms, that's when you're bringing that quantifiable metric into the training. And so when I say reimagine the training, is because I like us to take our vision from an awareness program or an entertainment program to a more valuable exercise that will increase the productivity of a person or people or a group in a department. Also, when we're talking about productivity, we could mean how many times does something have to go through or has to go through quality control. If it has to go through it 5 times, that is time that we're consuming in checking the quality of a product. Versus if it's done better, or if it's done well, and it has to go through quality control only 1 time, maybe twice, that is a gain. And here's where I also change our paradigm, where it's not necessarily that we're returning on the investment or producing an ROI, because it's not tangible dollars that we're getting back. But instead, what we're doing is we are avoiding the cost of the company in paying more hours for people to produce something, or double check or triple check something, and therefore we are avoiding spending more money, whether it's on salaries, tools, processes, etc. So it is very important for us to think about training that way, and that's why I am focusing so much on key performance indicators. So to close, what I say, let's take learning from the traditional entertainment that we have seen to a more based performance metric, or a performance improvement methodology. And so these 2 graphics pretty much depict what my idea is. When you are consulting with a client, let's make sure that we are not just going through the motions and asking, when do you want it by? and what content do you want in it, but instead, let's repurpose our questions to ask, what are we going to get out of it? How many revisions are we reducing? How many work hours are we saving? How many mistakes are we avoiding? How many more widgets are we getting out of the production? Or even how many hours or how many less hours are we investing on producing or investing in checking the quality of something? So that is going to put us ahead because it's purely a cost avoidance. And so training has to have a true meaning. Traditionally, when people ask for training, they do not necessarily have an idea what is it that they want to gain out of the training. It usually defaults to, we need training because we believe this is going to fix the problem that they, the clients, cannot quantify yet. So that's why if we take it from the traditional entertainment that it has become to a more performance improvement methodology conversation, we can then uncover those purposes, the true quantifiable purposes of creating a training program, and therefore a learning solution. So I hope this gives you a little insight and that you repurpose your questions and your consultation time after the needs analysis to really discover what is it that we are solving for. Thank you all, and I hope we meet again.